There are things about God and his character that I cannot know outside of suffering. How can I know that God is my provider if I'm never in need? How can I know that God is my comforter if I'm never in pain?
It's that pride in us that we've got it, we can fix it, we can do it, we're fine, we're okay, we're not hurt, we're not sad, we're not, and it's like this needy dependence of going, hey, admit it. On that dash on your gravestone between the date you're born and the date you die, you're needy,
Yep.
whether you like it or not.
No, it's exactly right. 100%.
Welcome back. And we are neck deep into physical pain and the spiritual side of physical pain. And what does that look like? It's interesting. We talk a lot about the physical pain, and we talked touched a little bit on that spiritual side of things. What does it look like? What does that look like to be preparing for that? It's hard to understand or put myself in a place of like, I knew physical pain was coming because of surgery, but not everybody knows physical pain's coming, car crash, accident, whatever. But what does that look like to become a healthy person that at least is in the place where they can acknowledge and work through that?
Well, some of it has to be done before the pain, but some of it can only be done in the pain. So what I mean by that is, I think our growing in Christ, our growing knowledge of God through the Word, of His character, that He is good, of our recognition of so many of the biblical characters experience pain. I mean, I can't think of one that didn't. I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
of David and Moses and Abraham and Elijah and Elisha, Ruth, Naomi, Esther. I mean, it's like, Peter, Paul,
Yeah.
John. I mean, you just pick your person, and
Yep.
it's like, so there's an underlying meta narrative in the Christian life that pain is part of the formation process. In fact, I don't think you can actually talk about Christ formation, which is taking on the character of Christ, without talking about the reality of suffering. There is something that is embedded in that. We see that even in Jesus. So we need to maybe normalize it in one sense, but also build a biblical theology, especially not of why it happens, but of who God is in the midst of it when it happens. So here's one of the things that I've learned in my season of chronic pain, and I can tell a little bit of my story later on. There are things about God and his character that I cannot know outside of suffering. How can I know that God is my provider if I'm never in need? How can I know that God is my comforter if I'm never in pain?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's things that God can be for me in pain that he can't be for me otherwise. He's a very present help in times of need. There is a dimension of our relationship with him that pain opens up the portal of in a way that nothing else can. So, in a way, there are things about God and his character that I can only know by contrast. It won't always be that way. But right now, in this world and in the fight that we're in, pain is a reality that we need to embrace in a way that doesn't derail us. All of that, I think, is pre work that we need to be constantly doing in our time with the Lord, whatever that looks like. Whatever that looks like for you is a daily quiet time, journaling, whatever spiritual disciplines that you have as your routine. I really think that one of the most important things we can do on a regular basis is to remind ourselves of who God is. Because the first thing that the enemy is going to want to do when we are in pain is attack us with doubt about the character of God. It's exactly what he did in the garden with Adam and Eve, and it's exactly what he does with us today.
I think he did it with Jesus right after he was baptized.
100%.
Same thing, took him to the desert.
So just think about that. Satan is so cocky about how good he is at doing that he goes after Jesus.
I never really thought about it in that direct. I mean, think about that, going after the son.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty ballsy. I don't know if we can say that, but you
You can
know.
say whatever you want. But I also think that that's an interesting dynamic that I never really thought about. Think about God the Father watching Satan go after his son.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, then you go back to Isaiah, where Isaiah talks about um, that it was the Father's will to crush him.
I mean, and you talk about that, and I was talking with you earlier before we had started this whole thing, but A.W. Tozer talks about that, right? And he says, I don't believe that God will not um, anoint a man greatly whom he has not crushed severely. And that's hard.
Yeah.
That's real hard to think about. But then if you take that a step farther, and we can do this later, but let's take that a step farther and go, people that are leading the church, that are trustworthy, good people, should be walking with a pretty heavy limp. And not just walking with a limp, but leading with that limp.
Well, and the reality is that we have to pretend that we don't.
Oh, that's a whole nother.
So I'll just tell you a quick story. One of the churches that I worked in a number of years ago, I was really struggling, and I was struggling with depression, anxiety. I was just not doing well, and I was teaching at a pastor's conference, and I brought up the fact that I was taking Prozac at that time, that I was struggling with depression.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I really wrestled with how real, but this was a conference for pastors,
Sure.
right? And we were just talking about the realities of ministry. And so I'm doing a general session talk to hundreds of pastors. And I remember afterward how many guys came up to talk to me afterward and said thank you. But when I got back home, my senior pastor came to me and he said, I heard about what you were talking about at that conference. Don't ever do that again. Now, I love this man, and he was concerned for me because of how that would come across to other people, and that it made me vulnerable to being attacked by people. So I don't think that he was saying that to me because you need to hide this, you need to stuff it, you need to suck it up. Um, I think it was more about his concern for me because there's a lot of people in the church that really don't want to know that their pastors are struggling with humanity.
I'll reserve my comment on that.
Well, you don't have to, but I remember, Susan and I had a conversation after that, and that was a game-changing moment for her where she started really questioning, are we in the right place? Because if we can't be real with what's really going on, then that's a problem.
Why have we, ever since the garden, we have struggled to be real? I mean, that is literally God goes, where are you? It's not like he was like, oh, I physically cannot find you.
No.
It had nothing to do with that.
I think it comes back to, one of the things that I've learned from Chip Dodd is, and Jim Wilder helped me with this as well, in making a distinction between healthy shame and toxic shame.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy shame is embracing your limitations.
Yep.
I think the core of the fall was that Eve, who was being deceived by Satan, was unwilling to embrace the limitations to which God had created them with.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to embrace our limitations. We don't want to say that I need somebody else. I can't do this. I need help. And so, but when you are in pain, there's days where you don't have any other choice. And so now you've kind of painted yourself in a corner where you are unwilling to embrace your own limitations, your own humanity, right? The way God created us to be interdependent upon Him and others. Now we're fighting against our very nature and character. And so you can just see again, this is all the groundwork for the enemy.
Yeah. And it kind of moves us into a place of we really have two choices. You can either choose to not use it for good and hide it and bury it and shrink away into a corner and go, I'm good, I got it, I'm tough, blah, 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 and have some people think, man, that guy's real strong. He's really tough. And the truth is that idea of like shrinking, hiding, going into a corner, I'm going to hide like I've got it all together. I think there's a root of pride in that as
Yes.
well. There's a tinge of what men who can act all tough and be real humble about it, but it's not real humility.
Mm-mm.
Humility is putting your hand up and going, "Hey,
I need help.
I don't have it.
Yeah.
I don't. I have it sometimes. I have it a bunch of the time. I don't have it.
Yep.
I don't have it right now."
Well, and I really think that at its core, we are resisting our own humanity.
Yep.
And we are trained as men, especially, for that to be true. If you're hurting, don't cry. Men don't cry. Uh, when you're in pain, suck it up. Rub dirt on it. Come on, dude. Don't be such a baby. So there's this narrative, and it's the same in the church. Where's your faith? If you're struggling with something, it's like you must not have enough faith.
But this starts at a young age. If you think
Yes.
about when we do this with our kids, right? Sometimes, yeah, kids carry on and they can become a lot and da 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 and whatever and exaggerate and just want attention. But if your kid falls down and they scrape their knee and it hurts, why is our immediate reaction, oh, stop crying, you're fine? Oh,
Yeah.
deny. In other words, deny the fact that your knee hurts.
Right.
Deny that. It's not true. It's not true. And subtly, what we're doing is telling them when that hurts, it's not true
Or it doesn't matter.
or it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Thank you.
So one of our built-in God-given needs, and the way the brain works, is that when you are in pain, you immediately look for comfort.
Yep.
It's just an automatic response, because the brain, the primary job of your brain is to keep you alive. And so we are going to run from pain. We're going to avoid pain. It's just a built-in dynamic that can become exceedingly toxic. But children need to know that when they're in pain, they have someone to go to
Yep.
to experience comfort. And here's what happens if you don't, if you go to your parent again and again and again looking for comfort when you're in pain and you don't get it, you do one of two things. You either have contempt for your own need for that,
Huh.
or you you live in a state of denial that it doesn't hurt, and you can't. That's not living in the light. That's not walking in the light.
And just think how many steps down the road as we grow up and get older and then date and then get married and then have kids and that all that we got to shove into a corner and hide and go, no, that doesn't exist. No, that doesn't. And then all of a sudden these little shallow graves start popping up and we're like, well,
Yep.
what's all that?
Well, and if I don't have compassion and for my own pain,
Mm,
I'm not going to have it for yours. If I have
Mm.
contempt for my pain, I'm going to have contempt for yours.
that's interesting.
So part of what I think is built into parenting is you don't want your child to be in pain. So you want to help them get out of that pain as quickly as possible, which is, oh, that didn't hurt, bud. You're fine. You're good. You're good. But there's also another side of it that I think it triggers something in them because they didn't get that comfort. And so when you have a child come to you that is crying, it disrupts you. It makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
And so, and you may not even be aware of it. And so you want to shut that down. Now, none of this is intentional. Nobody's trying to hurt their children or grandkids. But I see this a lot in my youngest granddaughter. She's a tough cookie, man. And when she'll be going along and she'll trip and fall and she'll go, I'm okay. It's just like an automatic response. She just jumps back and just kind of looks back at us and like, I'm fine. I'm okay. And I'm just like, where is that coming from? So it's just something that's kind of wired into us. And I think we reinforce that unintentionally, both as parents and grandparents, because we don't want them to be in pain. So we want them to kind of snap out of it, or their pain is triggering my own
Mhm.
resistance to embracing pain. So there's a lot of different things going on.
There you go. And so, kind of bringing it back full circle, it's interesting when when Julie, she had gone through cancer in a season of life, and part of that question in that pain, not for her, but interestingly enough for me, was, man, God, if she dies, are you still good?
Yeah.
If I go through this pain, if I if I walk that road, are you still good? And the thing is that in the question, like if you actually enter into the pain, it's different than when you stand outside of it and you're like, ooh, that pain could be coming.
Yes.
And you ask these questions. But it kind of creates this where we go as men is like we get stuck between what my heart knows and what my head knows. And when I did some counseling, and I remember it was group counseling at the time, and one of the guys had come in and he's like, that 12-inch journey is going to be a lifetime. And I was like, what is he talking about? I don't understand. I'm just angry about this. I'm mad that this hurts. I'm mad that this happened in my life. And the truth was that if I wanted to reconcile those two things with God, I had to connect my head and my heart.
Yeah.
What does that look like for men as we do that and as we journey that? What are some practical things men can do to make that connection of their head to their heart? Obviously, having other men speak into their lives is one.
Yeah, that's a big one. Not going it alone for sure.
Mm.
I think, Dana, probably the biggest missing thing that I see in the guys that I coach is a lack of understanding of their own emotion. And most guys know what it feels like to be angry. But anger is kind of a double-edged sword because while anger reveals what matters to you, right? So anger and rage are two different things.
Right.
Anger is a constructive emotion. Rage is a destructive emotion.
Mm-hmm.
If I know what makes you angry, now I know how to get to you. So anger is actually maybe the most vulnerable of all the 8 core emotions that Chip Dodd talks about. But what I've experienced is that very often men will gravitate to anger as a way of covering up feelings of sadness, hurt, and loneliness. And there's an aspect of loneliness that I want to talk about in regard to pain. But if I allow myself, so you ask for something practical, men have to get angry.
Mm.
Because once you start getting angry about it, this isn't fair. Why am I experiencing this? And you can take that to God. One of the things that we learn from the book of Job is that God can handle our anger. And I really think God was inviting Job to bring it. It's like, come on, bring it. Be a man. I can handle this, right? I created everything. So I got this, Job. Your anger, Job, is not going to scare me away. And so Job unleashed in that anger, and God did not strike him dead for it. Now, God redirected that, right? And God,
Yep.
right, he brought some clarity to that because Job was starting to get a little self-righteous in that
Yeah. And then he
regard.
goes at him and, were you there when I formed the
Yeah,
foundations of the earth? Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
That'll humble you pretty fast.
No, it wasn't quite there, but yep. Okay.
But the reason that we need to get angry is because underneath the anger, you will often find a deep well of hurt and sadness, especially sadness. And we resist feeling sad like the plague. There's a whole book in the Bible called Lamentations, right? Over and over again in the Psalms, you see David lamenting, David feeling. I mean, David was a warrior, but gosh, the guy, he was a feeler. And so we tend to hide from our own hearts. We don't know our hearts. But the way that I believe that you can know your heart, know what's going on in your heart, is through these windows of these 8 core emotions that Chip talks about in his book, Voice of the Heart. That has been so instructive for me personally, and just spending the last 2 years with Chip that I have. Uh, but it's also helping me understand how much I even resist it in my own self. It's like this conditioned response that and part of it too is that anger is an empowering emotion. So it makes you feel
Yeah.
like you have some agency, some capacity for some control, whereas sadness, hurt, and loneliness are more depleting
Well, in
emotions.
anger, I can direct it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I can push it at somebody, but it kind of comes back to this pride thought that I was thinking about was really this idea of like, number one, it starts with, why would I be the one that has to go through pain? Why me? Why, if God loves me, why would he do, and the interesting thought to that is like, God let the worst possible thing happen to the only person that ever walked this earth that
That
was
didn't deserve
sinless.
it. Yeah.
The only person that didn't deserve it, he
Yeah.
let that happen to them. So then I'm like, oh, so why would I think that I'm exempt in any moment of my life?
Well, I think that's part of it, but I also think that your statement helps to shape our understanding that there's a mystery here.
Yeah.
There has to be something in pain and suffering that is essential to the formation of our character.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but the greatest growth in my life has not come during times of ease and plenty.
I don't think it does for anyone.
So there's something there about that. What is it about pain and suffering that is a catalyst? That it can be a catalyst to great character formation, but it can also be a detriment if we let it. That's where we have the choice.
Yep.
And we can succumb to Satan's lies and distortions that God doesn't love you. You deserve
Sure.
this.
Yeah.
You've done something, like Job's friends, right? Job, you must have done something to deserve this, right? There's this mindset. And we even see this in the New Testament when the disciples come to Jesus like, why was this man born blind? Was it his sin, his parents' sin, right? There was this prevailing understanding that physical illness or infirmity is somehow an indication that you've lost God's favor or that there's something wrong with you spiritually. And that's just not true. It's just not the case. And here's another dynamic. I wanted to
Yeah.
go back to 2 Corinthians chapter 1. I'm sure this is a familiar verse to most of you guys. But this now, obviously Paul is the author of much of the New Testament, including
Yep.
1st and 2nd Corinthians. And of all the guys that suffered, this guy suffered, right? And what's interesting, even when you remember back in the book of Acts, when Ananias comes, the Lord says, "Hey, I want you to go to Paul and pray for him." And Ananias is like, God, are you sure about this?
Yeah.
I think he's a bad dude." And then God says, "I'm going to show him how much he must suffer for me." Now, I wouldn't want that spoken over my life as my ministry, but Paul had a ministry of suffering.
Yep.
And then he writes this in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 3 to 5. "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our troubles so that," right? So here's the why. "We can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort that we ourselves have received from God. For just as the sufferings of Christ flow over into our lives, so also through Christ our comfort overflows."
Put that in layman's terms. You can't lead where you haven't been.
Exactly. Exactly. And when you really kind of unpack this, there's so much going on here that gives a rationale to our suffering that is so contrary to God's abandoned you. God doesn't love you. God's not in control. If God were powerful, then he would take this away. So he must not be powerful. If he loved you, he would never let this happen. So he must not love you, right? I mean, that's all the head games
Yep.
that go on. And again, when we are in pain and we're just vulnerable to that stuff. That's why we need other people to come alongside of us and in the right time help to correct our aberrant theology.
So, in kind of bringing this full circle and wrapping this up, it's interesting. We talked about sort of my pain, and I'd mentioned your email at the bottom that nothing is wasted. Your sign off, and it's as though nothing is wasted if we are willing to listen and look and know that our pain is not a waste. Our emotions that come from that are not a waste. And then our response to Jesus and to others is not wasted. Right?
Yes. Well, and do you know where that statement came from? Nothing is wasted.
No.
So a number of years ago, I was taking a load of wood and junk to the dump. And I had laid in the bottom of my truck cardboard that I needed to get rid of and put all the wood and stuff on top of the cardboard.
Yeah.
And so I'm at the dump and I'm throwing wood out and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to pull the cardboard out with all the stuff on it and just get this done, right? In
Yep.
one fell swoop, get it done. And so I reached in, I had to reach deep into the bed of the truck and pull, and it was heavy. And so I pulled hard and the cardboard ripped and I fall back
Oh
and
no.
I didn't want to land on my head. So I turned my body and then my arm went on one of those boards and snapped my wrist.
Oh.
It was so here's I immediately jumped up. I was so ticked that I had done this because I looked at my wrist and it wasn't looking. It was like,
Oh.
and I started taking the rest of the stuff out of the truck, and then in about 15 seconds I started getting really lightheaded. And for whatever reason, Susan decided to go with me that day to the dump. Right, maybe twice in our entire 40 years of marriage, she's gone to the dump with me, and that was one of them. And I remember I kind of made it around to the passenger side, and she was reading, and I said, "Honey, I just fell and broke my wrist." And she looked at me and she's like, "What?" And then I kind of slumped back up against the truck and kind of was going because I was getting ready to pass
Oh
out.
boy.
And so, long and short of it, one of the most, I mean, I've had a full knee replacement in this left knee. That wasn't fun. But this wrist, man, it was painful. I had 2 surgeries.
Oh.
And after the first surgery, I had a titanium plate in my wrist holding it all together.
Yep.
And I was in Montana at Trinity Ranch, where we do these men's events. And I'm sitting out on a stump, and I couldn't do anything with that wrist, with that arm. I was dependent on other people, needing help from other people. I remember when I was flying up, um, I I broke my wrist on a Monday, and I was supposed to fly to Montana on Saturday. And my surgeon said to me, he said, "Ken, you need to cancel your trip because we need to do the surgery right away." And I said, "Doc, I'm not doing that." I said, "I got 20 guys waiting there for me. I'm not canceling." And he's like, "Well, if you wait, this is going to make the surgery more difficult because your tendons are going to start pulling your bones apart, and it's going to make it more difficult." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it." I said, "Can you just put a cast on it and give me some pain meds and
Oh.
send me on my way?" And I said, "I promise when I get back, the first thing I'll do is schedule surgery." And so reluctantly, he did that. So anyway, I'm in John Wayne Airport getting ready to fly to Montana, and I had my carry on, and I would always stop and get a Starbucks, and go sit at the gate and read the paper. Well, what I didn't realize is that I only have one arm, and I'm pulling my carry on and my camera in my bag. I can't hold my coffee cup, and I remember I'm standing there. I'm in this dilemma, and this guy looks at me and he's like, "Can I carry your coffee to your gate?"
Mm.
A complete stranger. I had no
Yep.
idea who this guy was.
Yep.
And I remember feeling so embarrassed. And I just said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, thanks. I'd really appreciate that." Well, thankfully, my gate wasn't all the way down the end of the
Yep.
concourse.
Yep.
But so then I'm getting on the plane and I got to put my carry on in the overhead. And I'm looking at this again. I'm in this dilemma. I don't know how much. And the guy behind me said, "Hey, man, can I put your bag up there for you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate that." So then I get to the ranch, and I'm teaching with another pastor friend up there, and we were actually staying in the same house that particular time. And I went to him and I said, "Hey, Tim, I'm gonna need your help this week. I can't buckle my belt. I can't, I can't,
Oh
I
no.
can't put my watch on. I mean,
Nothing. Zero.
nothing. So I'm gonna need your help." It was so humiliating and so humbling for me.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting out. So fast forwards because we did multiple weeks up there. So now I'd had the surgery. I got this plate in my arm, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just feeling terrible. And I remember looking down, and there's this huge fresh cow pie right down there, and I'm like, "Lord, that is a picture of how I feel right now, right? And what I think about this
Yeah,
situation."
I bet.
And I remember it was so clear. It was one of those really clear times. That's when the Lord said, "Ken, nothing is wasted." That
Mhm.
part of what I'm doing in allowing this to happen is teaching you to depend upon others
Mm.
because you are the first person to help somebody when they're in need, and you're the first person to run the other direction when you're in need. What's up with that? So that phrase, nothing is wasted, is really important to me because it brings me back to that place of healthy shame where I have limits. I can't do everything. I am needy. I need God. I need good friends that are willing to come alongside and help me and do things for me that I can't do for myself.
You know, when Julie was sick, it was the same thing. I didn't want to ask anybody for help. And finally I had a friend come to me and go, what if God's working on that friend though to be a
Yeah.
better helper and you're denying them that opportunity?
Yep.
And that kind of kicked me a little bit. And I was like, oh,
We can make it so about us.
the pride.
Yeah.
It's that pride in us that we've got it, we can fix it, we can do it. We're fine, we're okay, we're not hurt, we're not sad, we're not. And it's like this needy dependence of going, hey, admit it. On that dash on your gravestone, between the date you're born and the date you die, you're needy,
Yep.
whether you like it or not.
No, it's exactly right, 100%. And that is just not a message that most men have been given in a way that helps them embrace it or that they're willing to accept.
And it doesn't mean you're this woe is me. Oh, I always need. Da, da, da. It's not that. It's that it's seasons of life that God walks us through. Whether we're
Yes.
teaching, the nothing is wasted thought of. It's like there's seasons. Even in the season, yes, we don't learn as much on the mountaintop, but we can definitely look down in the valley and help those that are in that valley.
Well, and again, if I resist what I need when I'm in pain, I am going to be unwilling to be that for somebody else. So again, there's this, and I think this goes back to what Paul's talking about here in 2 Corinthians. There's this reciprocal dynamic that is built into pain and suffering that we have it may be, Dana, one of the ways that we exercise our role as the priesthood of believers
Mm.
is that we're willing to come alongside of others and loving our neighbor. We're willing to come alongside and love them and serve them and help them because somebody came alongside and did that for us.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. All right. Well, this has been awesome. Good chat on a very hard topic. But thank you for listening, for watching. We really appreciate it. We will continue to dive into some of the hard topics for men, especially being Men Talking podcast, and we look forward to bringing you another one soon.
Thanks, guys.